Forced adversity.
I really kind of started the Anti-SJW thing on YouTube. I know it's like a weird vein, but I mean, like if you go back and look, like my video, it's only sexist when men do it, is kind of like the precursor to all the anti-SJW stuff that happened on YouTube since then. And it was a huge hit, and it was like front page of Reddit, and it was you know, a lot of attention and views. And of course, I got more and more into it. And the anti-SJW stuff, for me, the central focus of the content that I made, and you can go back and look for the most part. Now, I'm not saying I never said anything that was like right wing by today's standards, or maybe even by the standards of the time, but for the most part, what mine was about was people who I felt were trying to control art and entertainment and media. And my fucking cry to them was always, hey, go make your own fucking shit. Go make your own fucking art that reflects your sensibilities then. You don't like what fucking is on offer? Go do something yourself instead of just bitching about it. And they have. Now there's tons of stuff that's made with the sensibilities of the people I used to criticize. And you know what? A lot of it's actually pretty good. Like, I've watched some of it. Some of this like woke content or whatever, and a lot of it's actually really good, well written, interesting characters, new perspective.
Exactly.
And all of the people who, you know, used to say with me, oh yeah, just do your own shit, just do your own shit. Now all of a sudden they're like, they're taking over our shit. Look at this, they're making their own shit, and it's horrible. We hate it. We're scared. It's like, this is what you said you wanted.
Considering the publication that you write for, which is just, that's all Geeks and Gamers does, man, is play the victim. You know, anything that isn't, you know, that has some character that's not a white male basically becomes this, you know, big evil SJW agenda driven thing, despite those not being definable terms that anybody can really point to. It's all just feelings based nonsense, don't you think?
Saying he's black, you're talking about Geeks and Gamers. Geeks and Gamers isn't just Jeremy. Geeks and Gamers is a bunch of people who are doing some work about like all the different things, and they're different people. Like, we've got LGBT members, we've got black people, we got all these different people. Like, don't just narrow it down to Jeremy.
Well, I mean, he's clearly like the figurehead of the thing, right? Like, he's the most visible person.
He's the creator, yeah.
I mean, he sets the tone. The tone of Geeks and Gamers is to, you know, whine about anything that comes out that isn't fixated on a white straight man. Basically, it happened with Shang-Chi. It happened with Black Panther. It happened with, you know what I mean, Captain Marvel. Like, there was, I don't know how many videos, and I'm sure Geeks and Gamers is one of them, probably articles too, if I look, where it's just, they're screeching about her being a feminist, you know, that hates men and stuff, when it's like, all she did was say that she thinks there needs to be more people of color that review movies, and that gets turned into like this. It's like you guys operate.
I don't want to hear what a 40-year-old white dude has to say about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for you.
Okay. So okay, fine. You want to make a video about that and say, I think that's a shitty thing to say, but why did it turn into like a year almost of nonstop videos and
because he was using the algorithm. Like, he knows the algorithm was like geared towards making those kind of videos, so he did it.
So you do admit that Geeks and Gamers uses the algorithms and how it favors sensationalism and outrage. So you're making outrage content, right?
What is YouTube about? Getting views. A lot of people want to get views. Like, if your algorithm is pushing one thing, you're going to make more videos on that thing.
Well, because look, when I make content, I'm making it based on my ethics and the things that I actually believe. Why are you okay with that, man? Like, do you ever stop to think that, hey, maybe I could like, you know, be a more positive contributor to fandom than this? Or you just sleep well at night and don't ever think about it, or what?
I'm not going to say anything against Lyndon. I realize I've looked at his Twitter feed, and Lyndon he's a bomb thrower. It's how he gets a reaction. It's how he gets people to look at his stuff. I have a feeling it has to do with confidence, that, you know, he lacks confidence, but realizes that if he just throws out inflammatory things, it makes people react to him. And so it's, again, we talk about that temporary endorphin hit. That's what he gets off that. But the one thing I realized in talking to him is that it's not so much that he has any beliefs. It's that he's enjoying being part of something.
Yeah.
He enjoys he feels like he's part of this movement that he doesn't even fully understand himself, because you gave him plenty of time to be able to speak and to say what he felt, and he couldn't do it. And the reason he couldn't is because there was a lot of things you were asking him point blank questions in some cases, and he was literally just like stumbling over his words, or he couldn't talk because you could tell he hadn't thought about these things before, because he's gotten so addicted to being part of this movement that he's echoing things that he's heard, but he's never really thought about it. And it almost makes me feel bad for him.
Yeah, I mean, I cut the conversation short, honestly, because I genuinely was feeling bad. Like as it went further along, it really just felt like he was out of his element and uncomfortable, and hadn't really considered, like you're saying, any of the supporting structure for any of his points.
At first, I went in like most people did, which was, oh, please tear this guy a new asshole, you know. But then the more you talk to him, and the more he didn't have anything to say. And then other times when he literally conceded things you were saying that I couldn't believe he was conceding, because to me, again, things he probably never thought about. By the end of it, I kind of just wanted to give him a hug.
Yeah.
And be like, dude, listen, life can be better than this. You have it in you. I can see it. You have it in you to be a better person than this. And I almost wanted to help him, you know?
I kind of got that intuitive sense as well, as just that, he doesn't seem like a bad person. You know, like as I talked to him, I wasn't like, you piece of shit. Like you, I started out like, all right, let's fucking do this, man. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. And then as I realized that, these are things that I've put a lot of thought into, you know what I mean? Like I try to listen to these points from people I don't agree with. And, like I got back into comics 5-6 years ago because I started, hearing stuff about SJWs ruining comics. And I've been into comics since I was a little kid. So I was like, what? Who are these SJWs ruining my comics? You know what I mean? And then I start reading comics like, whoa, no, this is good stuff. What are they talking about? And that's when I started understanding what was really going on. And it started me down the path of like, studying this stuff. So yeah, it's not like I'm just starting from disagreeing and working my way backward. I genuinely tried to support the views that I'd seen around and find information to support it. But what I know of comics and the lore and the industry and the history of it, and it doesn't jive, with their claims. Comic sales for 2020, both print and digital. And this is not just one source. This is Comicron and ICV2.com. 1.28 billion, which is, 0.7 higher than 2019, which was a little bit higher than 2018. And yeah, so you kind of,
it's actually on the up. Okay.
Yeah, it's been on the up. If you've been buying the comics are dying narrative, then yeah, you've been falling for some scam. And digital, by the way, look at this fucking jump in digital, dude. That's incredible. Point being, comics are doing well, better than well. They're doing great. The audience is expanding all the time, which is, part of why certain people have been running these narratives for so long, is they don't like that comics are not just theirs anymore. But honestly, I think it's awesome. It's pretty crazy to think that comics is basically no longer just kind of a fringe nerd culture anymore. It's just a mainstream thing.
Yeah.
Even if it's not, some people don't like, a lot of people still don't read comics regularly. A lot of people don't buy comics every Wednesday, but there's a whole lot of people who are getting, some graphic novels here and there and finding stuff they like and following it and, digging into the awesome history of graphic novels. And I love it. Glad that is happening. You know what I mean?
I'll go even further. If you only feel like you can sell your book to a group of people because you have aligned yourself with a cult of personality in a pseudo culture war in order to be able to sell your book and make money, you really need to question on how good your book is. Because granted, I work for Marvel, but I've done plenty of indie publication as well, whether it be covers or indie stories. None of them have ever had to rely on a culture war or a cult of personality or to be able to sell their books. they sell their books based on the quality of the book. And if the book has good art and good story, it'll sell. If the book doesn't, it won't. If you're not good at marketing, then, you know, the book won't do that well. The excuse of there are plenty of good people in Comicsgate, I don't doubt that at all. I don't doubt that there are plenty of people in there that are like, I don't align myself with any of what they say or believe, and it really bothered me when they said this, but I like the fact they support indie books. There's no end to the number of companies out there supporting indie books.
Right.
Comicsgate is not your only outlet. I mean, again, it might have more to do with the quality of your book, that Comicsgate was maybe the only one that would take you or something. But again, it's lazy. Do the work. If your book is not good enough to be able to stand on its own, then you need to work harder. You need to practice. You need to go take classes, take writing classes, take art classes, take lessons, ask for advice, go to conventions, talk to artists and writers. Stop taking the easy route. And Comicsgate is just, it's easy. It's easy. You know, and as long as you keep giving them your dollars and your attention, they're going to keep doing it. And it's the dumbing down of this industry. And I hate seeing people on the right or left doing it. There are plenty of right-wing, you know, right-believing conservative artists working in comics right now, working for Marvel and DC. You know, no, they don't like to talk about it because it kind of negates their point of conservatives can't get jobs. No, assholes can't get jobs. Conservatives, exactly. Plenty of conservatives work in comics. Assholes will eventually lose their jobs. Yeah. But no, plenty of conservatives. Stop letting them tell you that line of garbage. It's garbage.
Awesome. I'm glad you said that, man, because it's something that I've looked into a little bit, and it's difficult to pinpoint who might be a conservative if they're not necessarily speaking out very much. You know, so but I had a pretty strong suspicion that was the case. Nobody's getting their voter registration checked and then like, oh well, he's fired. You know what I mean? So
no, I have never in my life ever seen someone lose or get a job because of their political views. I have seen plenty of people lose their job for being an asshole. I have seen that a lot, and every time it's been like, yeah, I could completely see why that happened. I couldn't even imagine ever behaving that way, you know? And again, right and left, not just right-wing people losing their jobs, left-wing people too. Everybody is capable of being an asshole, you know? And yeah, you will lose your gig by being a dick.
You're representing not only a corporation but a culture and a community, a fandom, right? Like, so if you're gonna shit in the pool, basically, you can expect to get kicked out of the pool. It's about character, not race. Screw your mantles and legacy. U.S. Agent, Winter Soldier, and Falcon are not lesser identities. All right, okay. I had a response to that. Believe it or not, can you believe that? Well, okay, so first of all, let's just consider the irony of an account called the Green Lantern, and his handle is actually at Captain Jordan, as in Hal Jordan, who guess what, was not the first Green Lantern.
Damn. Oh my God.
So just right out the gate, he owned himself. Congratulations, you played yourself. That whole meme. So is Hal Jordan not a valid Green Lantern? Is John Stewart not a Green Lantern? Is you know, basically what I realized thinking about this was, it seems like there's a cutoff date in certain people's minds, right? Like if you're a legacy character post 2010,
whatever they
it doesn't count.
Yeah.
It doesn't count. Yeah. Green Lantern and his magic-based Golden Age namesake, Green Lantern. Flash and his Golden Age namesake with the funny hat, Flash. Superman and his dad, Superman. Wolverine and her clone dad, Wolverine. Spider-Man and his white mentor, Spider-Man. Legacy characters. It's a thing that's been around literally almost since the fucking dawn. Well, I don't know who the first legacy character is. Maybe Reggie, you might know offhand, but like, at least since, you know, the original Green Lantern and Flash, where there was Alan Scott and what was the original Flash's name? Slipping my mind. But they existed, you know, back in the 40s and 50s, And then they in the 70s, I think it was the 70s or 60s, they reintroduced a new Flash, Barry Allen, and a new Green Lantern, Hal Jordan. Same names, at least somewhat different power sets and different versions of the same power set, different origins, but the same essential powers and so on. And those are legacy characters, and people accept those. They're accepted. They're widely accepted. Like, in fact, most people would probably think of Hal Jordan as the Green Lantern if they're even aware of the original Alan Scott one. Same thing with Flash. Most people are going to think of Barry Allen and the more modern, the Silver Age Flash, as opposed to the original with the fucking, silver goofy hat and the lightning bolts on it. So what is it about newer characters that it's not okay for them to be legacy characters, right? Why is it okay for old characters, Silver Age characters, to have mantles that were passed down to them, but not modern, contemporary superheroes? Is anybody? Jay Garrick, thank you. Thank you, Xeon's Ghost. Jay Garrick was the original Flash. And then, never mind the fact that the Green Lanterns are literally a core of people with the title of their Green Lanterns, right? There's not just one Green Lantern. There's, John Stewart. He's been a Green Lantern since what, the 80s, 70s? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense that these people get upset about, Falcon being, which by the way is caused because I think in the comics they're making Falcon also Captain America now. So like there's going to be two Captain Americas the same way there's now two Wolverines. Laura Kinney is also Wolverine. And Spider-Man, Miles Morales is also Spider-Man. But that's the reason, if you notice, I framed this a specific way, by naming the newer one first, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like in a way to kind of like get your attention to say that like these, they're valid, in the same way that these who are generally accepted, these first two, well, guess what? Superman is also Superman. Wolverine is also Wolverine. Regardless of gender, regardless of sex or race, they're the same fucking thing, the same concept. And don't let anyone tell you the concept of a legacy character suddenly became invalid in the 21st century. Just keep that in mind, folks. A legacy character is a legacy character. If you don't like a legacy character because you like the original better, whatever, fine. But when you go around being a fucking gatekeeping dickhead about it, like, that's not the real Wolverine, which I see a lot, like the real Wolverine's a guy and not a girl and shit like that, then you better be consistent with how you apply that, is all I'm saying. Be intellectually consistent. Be intellectually honest. If you think that, Laura Kinney's not really Wolverine, if you think that John Kent's not really Superman, then you don't get to call Hal Jordan Green Lantern. You don't get to call Barry Allen the Flash. Don't let these people rewrite history because that's what they want to do. They want to, create false dichotomies, and they want to poison the well for newer readers and newer fans so that they believe this bullshit that like somehow it's not valid for Superman to have his son be named Superman and so on. Yeah, I mean, John Stewart, he's a black guy. So like what it was, did the woke mob go back in time and force diversity onto the Green Lantern Corps?
Yeah.
What happened?
If you watched anything from what G&G has done or any streams, you would have known that a lot of people clash with Jeremy over a lot of fucking things. So it's not an echo chamber like against what a lot of people believe, because we fight constantly about like movies, games, and what we think is the best. And Zack Snyder's movies are one of them. There's a big division in G&G. Like a lot of people love these movies. Jeremy fucking hates them. So
we need. There's a big elephant in the room with that, though, isn't there? There's a big ass elephant in the room when it comes to Zack Snyder and Geeks and Gamers.
On our donation page, we still have the Geeks and Gamers logo. I just want to say that I really, we talked about this, and we're really not affiliated with Geeks and Gamers as far as I'm concerned, and I really just want to make that clear. And I also want to just say, in light of recent events, I think we really, if Justice League teaches us anything, it's about coming together, and there's no room for hate. And I just think that it's important. It's an important message. And of course, as the father of Asian children. It really hits close to home.
Am I right?
Oh, we want to go there. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I can understand why there would be divided, because here's the thing. I and maybe if I give you benefit of the doubt and say that you're not like a hateful person, that you just have very specific ideas, you as an individual, right? That you have very specific ideas for what you think should and shouldn't be done. The fact is, when it comes to the anti-SJW, anti-woke crowd, that's very often the starting point for their criticisms. Not the story or the characters or anything. It's like these positions are worked backwards too. So you start with SJW bad, woke bad, whatever those things mean, the very nebulous terms that get thrown around. I don't think you like spawned the term SJW, but you definitely popularized
I did
it.
not coin the term.
Okay.
But I think I laid the foundation for what an anti-SJW video was. Like many terms on the internet, things become abused to the point where they're unrecognizable from their original intention. You know what I mean? Any term that you throw around to kind of identify a particular behavior eventually becomes so saturated, and people start misusing it. And before you know it, it just becomes a catch-all term for person I don't like, and then it's useless. It just becomes another term for like, I don't like you.
Just a rock to throw at your perceived enemy, right? So
right, you're bad. You're this thing that I don't like. I've slapped you with this label. You're defeated. I don't know. I feel like there should be a deeper question in your mind of like, why do I feel like trans people are my enemy? Why do I feel like gay people are my enemy? Why am I so upset when I see, a man kissing another man in a comic book? Like, why does that get my goat so much? Why am I so susceptible to being emotionally triggered by this event happening? Maybe question that a little bit, like do some like introspection on that issue. Because, there's a lot of problems in the world, and I feel like very, very few of them are caused by the existence of LGBTQ plus people. Almost none, really.
Yeah, almost none.
That's the one thing I want to say to, especially some of these people that aren't reading comics right now, and that they are believing things they're being told. The stuff that you're being told about the comic industry. I've been doing this for 20 years at Marvel. I was here at the bottom. I'm here now. I've been through all the different waves for the last 20 years. The stuff you're being told is happening is not happening. Just because they made a comic of Squirrel Girl with artwork you didn't like, just because Miss Marvel changed to Captain Marvel, they still make Punisher comics. Daredevil's still out there. X-Men is still the X-Men. Wolverine is still snitting and clawing everything. I mean, just because they added things to their catalog, the stuff you always liked, it's all still there. It's all still there. So doing this thing where you walk into a comic shop or you're being told about one or two books that Marvel makes that aren't to your liking because they possibly would like to get some girls to read comics. That doesn't mean Marvel's gone SJW. I don't, whatever that means.
Right.
Yes. Marvel publishes what, 50, 60 books a month? Yeah, maybe 1, 2, maybe even 30 of them aren't for you.
Right.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous to believe that there's this mass status quo. I mean, Batman is still Batman. He's still fighting the Joker. None of that stuff has changed. All they've done is added stuff. But all the stuff that all these guys are telling you I used to like but doesn't exist anymore, yeah, it does.
Well,
what happened was the books didn't change. They changed.
You know what I've realized over it took me a good couple of years to fully understand the goal of these Comicsgate and similar stuff like that, and what is the point of what they're doing in their mind. I think like the marketing tactic is to siphon off casual and new fans, because old school fans like me are not going to fall for the shit. We hear the claims and we look ourselves and we go, wait, this doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like I've been in this shit too long to think otherwise. But the MCU is popular as hell. Comics are way more mainstream now, and So you're starting to get people who, and like if a new fan goes on YouTube and searches for, hey, I want to find out about Thor comics because I like Thor in Ragnarok or whatever. They're more than likely going to come across some of that anti-SJW content that's going to tell them, well, they replaced Thor Odinson with Jane Foster, and it's like, and that's one example, as a matter of fact, of how dishonest this stuff is. For example, Riri Williams, Ironheart. They like to say there's a lot of claims of they're replacing this character with this black character or this woman version or whatever. And it's like, Tony Stark didn't get replaced.
No.
He was out of commission for a couple of months. Like every character goes through every once in a while. They do that. It's just it's all part of this narrative cycle. These things reset. The status quo more or less stays the same. And they'll drop a bomb in the middle of the status quo for an event or something every once in a while, and for excitement and sales, and then guess what? Things pretty much go back to normal.
They go back to normal. And here's the other thing too. There was a time where I kind of agreed with it a little bit. That I was like, oh yeah, why they keep replacing all these characters, blah blah. And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, wait a second. Spider-Woman, Spider-Girl, Batgirl, Robin, Batwoman. I'm like, She-Hulk. They've been doing female versions of characters since the friggin' 70s. Why are you mad now? Is it because it fits an agenda that you feel like this falls under, or is it legitimately that you're mad? Because if you are mad, you should also be getting mad at Batwoman and Batgirl and Spider-Woman and Spider-Girl and these other characters that were created to be a female version of a male character as far back as 50 years ago.
Yeah, Sandy's channel's dying. We can take a look at that if you want. So here we've got the Social Blade. They're up a little bit on views in the last month. Up a little bit. Uh-oh. All right, now let's look at the longer timeline. Sandy is clearly in decline. This is a downward trend. It gets a little peak here and there, but this is overall a downward trend for the channel. Here in May 2019, they were getting over 9 million views. And here in November, they're getting far, far less. Far, far less. Let's see. What was May 2019, guys? Let's think back. Let's you get a no prize. Whoever guesses what was going on in May of 2019 gets the no prize. Captain Marvel. The Brie Larson drama was in full effect at that time, and they were mining it hard. Look at all these Brie Larson videos. Oh, those were the good old days, weren't they, Sandy? Oh, you wish you could get back there, don't you, buddy? I know. If you could just get back there, maybe you could afford those eyebrow implants. Just nonstop Brie Larson shit. The most unlikable person on earth. That's not hyperbolic or anything, is it? No. You're not being dramatic for clicks, are you? She doesn't care about the opinions of white men. So? I mean, the implication there is that everyone should care about the opinions of white men. Like, the opinions of white men, dominate society. I don't think it's a big deal if somebody wants to avoid them. Oh my God. Brie Larson unfollows Gal Gadot on Instagram. Like, what a fucking stupid thing to cover. Yeah, Tim Pool did 100 videos on her. That was what the algorithm was hitting on back then, dude. But yeah, everybody hates Brie Larson. No, you don't hate her. You fucking love her because how much money did you make off of her, dude? Yep. See? He admits it. Her arrogance gets worse. Claims Captain Marvel is stronger. How is she arrogant for claiming a character is strong? It's a character she plays. Is the Hulk arrogant? Is Mark Ruffalo arrogant for saying that the Hulk is strong? Yeah, that's a good point, Darnell. That's going to be really interesting to see compare the Captain Marvel sequel and how well their content does. That might actually be a pretty good metric of this whole chud thing. Like, how is it on the? I do feel like it is generally in a downward trend. It still gets the clicks. It's still doing better than I do because, you know, it's dishonest and you don't have to think about it to make that content. It doesn't take any energy to just go on a stream and talk shit on Brie Larson nonstop. You know, there's no nuance to it. You don't have to take time to consider your opinions. All you got to do is fire up the camera, fire up the stream thing, and, you know, start ranting angrily. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how well in comparison their videos on that do. She has no idea when Captain Marvel 2 is happening. Is that, what is that? You know, there was probably a point, definitely a point after each Avenger movie, like Captain America, Iron Man, when you can probably find an interview where they're like, I don't know when it's happening, because you don't always know when the sequel's going to happen. Just the most dishonest fucking garbage, dude. Pure garbage. Yeah, they're going to go hard on She-Hulk. Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure that won't do as well. The reason that I say that it's going to be interesting with the Captain Marvel sequel, especially, is because of Brie Larson, and because it's going to have, you know, Kamala Khan and what's her name, Monica Rambeau. So that's like a threefer of wokeness for them. But it's just basically going to be a woke goldmine for them, and it'll be really, really interesting to see how it stacks up to their previous coverage of woke shit. Yeah, bonus, they get to harp on women of color too. I wonder if they're probably going to do some Islamophobia. Yeah, okay, I'm calling it. We're going to see Islamophobia. We're going to see your typical anti-black bigotry, you know, disguised as, oh, I'm just, why you got to force it into the movies and stuff. And we're also going to see, of course, the anti-feminism, anti-Brie Larson hate. They're going to just lose their fucking minds over all of that shit. And maybe it'll do well. Maybe that threefer, that combo, will give them the, you know, the boost that they look for with everything they cover, because that's what it's all about, is trying to get back to those glory days of Captain Marvel, The Last Jedi, and The Last of Us 2. So this is speaking of Brie Larson, this is a good segue that I did totally on purpose. It was not an accident at all. You guys remember when this was a big deal? It still is, but do you remember when it was a really big deal?
Oh, yes. The thing that caused everyone to lose their minds back in 2019.
Yeah, these guys make sure that we never forget what she said, right?
With that in mind, this just came up, and this quote apparently came out around the same time. But it's weird how nobody's really said anything about this.
Oh shit! I see what you did. Double standards. These assholes. Oh my god.
When did this come out?
Dang.
2019.
Slick Dane.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just kind of interesting.
Covering this.
Well, yeah, it's probably because it's not convenient. You know what I mean? Partially because it's easy for them to, you know, they hate women, especially unless they're like, you know, in the kitchen making them sandwiches or whatever. And then they still hate them. They just like, they tolerate them at that point. But when it comes to, you know, a white dude, it's not as easy to go after him, especially when it comes to Spider-Man. Well, that actually brings me intentionally, totally on purpose, to another thing. The anti-SJWs are acting like the success of No Way Home is a win against woke agendas, like they weren't complaining about Zendaya being MJ years ago. The fact that a huge chunk of Spider-Man No Way Home centers around Peter trying to solve the problem with nonviolence and understanding, yet online folks are still claiming the movie was successful because it's not woke, really proves that by woke, they mean Peter Parker wasn't a minority. This one.
It was handled in such a subtle, nice, funny, kind of organic way.
You're number one, you're number two. But what I'll tell you what honestly worried me in the film, because it'd been like, there had been no wokeness, no identity politics. And then when Andrew and Toby were talking about who they've lost and whatnot, and then I was just like, oh no, one of them's going to come out as gay. I just thought, oh no, this is the moment of the film where they're just going to slip some fucking wokeness in, because it's like, well, you know, I did have somebody.
Yeah, I know. I thought that too.
I was like, oh,
I thought that too. And I'm like, they're going to do it.
So yeah, we got Piss Pickle Babyface there is very clearly, in my opinion, they worry more about, they're so worried about like, oh, sudden surprise gay stuff. Like, they think about this shit more than gay people do, I think. Like, more than
it's like
woke people do.
Normal people do not think this stuff and worry about this as they're watching a film.
Yeah, exactly, Neil. It's like that was literally in the movie. It's just a moment where there's like some emotions between men, and he's like, "Oh no, they're gonna be gay." You know, it's really kind of says a lot about their ideas of masculinity and sexuality, and
why would you think about that in that moment? Like, I hope, like, the sad part is I want to believe they're trolling, but I know they're not, and that's what makes it so sad.
Yeah, it's a gay panic. That's literally what it is. Gay panic. You know. It's literally what we just saw is the textbook definition of homophobia. He was afraid they were gonna do something gay because, like, basically it's the kind of guy that, you know, if you knew him in real life and you're like, you know, buddies with him and you're like, hey man, good to see you, and try to give him a hug, he'd be like, whoa, I'm not gay. Like, it kind of gives the game away in a few ways, right? Because like a lot of times, or at least they used to attempt to say that it's not just gay stuff or whatever, it's when it's forced or whenever it's, you know, unnecessary to the thing. And it's like they often don't even pretend that anymore. They're just flat out saying, no, it's anything gay, anything not white, because Zack Snyder's Justice League is not an accurate representation of pretty much any Justice League comic that has ever been written. I love it. I have a poster of it up. I love Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is actually kind of uncommon for people on the left, apparently, but I think it's great. You know, I mean, I think there's definitely some flaws with it. There are certain things that Zack Snyder does in his films that I think are kind of odd choices, but overall, I think it's fucking great. However, I know that it's not anything like any Justice League comic that I've ever read, and I've read a lot of them. So why is it okay for Zack Snyder to do that? You know, to do something that's completely unlike anything that has existed in the comics before.
But he's not a comic book writer talking about.
So where
he's
are
just
these
making movies?
Okay, but this is something you brought up twice now. Where is this standard decided and written? Who has decided that if someone writes a comic, then they have to obey certain standards, and if they haven't written a comic, they don't have to? Do you realize how arbitrary and kind of, you know, silly that is, man? Like, you're just making up standards and metrics for yourself. And that's fine. If you want to have standards and metrics for yourself, that is fine. But to try to apply them to everyone else and say that's some kind of objective, you know, measurement or something it's pretty silly, man.
Especially some of these people that are easily influenced and that are easily convinced of things, realize that some of these people don't realize that what they're saying is racist or xenophobic or just unappreciated, or dehumanizing.
So because the great replacement theory is something that, you know, if you're in online politics at all, you've known what it is for a while now, a few years. But since, what was it, the Buffalo shooting a couple of weeks ago, it's become much more commonplace for, you know, I've seen it talked about on NBC News and stuff, you know, which before it wasn't really talked about like that. But now it's becoming like an actual nationally understood thing that exists. If you're not familiar with the Great Replacement theory, the Great Replacement narrative provides the central framework for the global white supremacist movement. The racist conspiracy says there is a systematic global effort to replace white European people with non-white foreign populations. The ultimate goal of those responsible, Democrats, leftists, multiculturalists, and at times Jews, is to reduce white political power and ultimately to eradicate the white race. The theory has motivated multiple terror attacks, including the 2018 attack at the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania Tree of Life Synagogue, the 2019 attacks at 2 Christchurch, New Zealand mosques, and an El Paso, Texas Walmart, and most recently, an attack targeting Black people at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. And the reason that I bring this up, some of you probably already realize where I'm going with this, is because it just kind of clicked the other day. And as much as I've looked at this stuff for years now and looked at these narratives, it never really just clicked into place until the other day that anti-fandom, like what they're doing, the Fandom Menace is doing over Moses Ingram and such, is just the fandom extension of the Great Replacement theory, right? Like, it's all the same sentiment being pushed, that they're, you know, of course they're not going to say that. They're not going to say, they've moved on from saying that, I should say it. They used to be much more open about saying, oh, they're replacing characters with Black character. You know what I mean? Like that was more Comicsgate and Phantom Menace would say that a lot more a few years ago. Now they've moved on to these slightly more, I guess, obtuse arguments like, oh, she's not a good actress or whatever. But really what's underneath all that is the Great Replacement theory. They're mad that, especially Star Wars, which is, historically was just this homogenous white, thing where you had like one black character in the original trilogy, and then maybe like 2 or 3 in the prequel trilogy. And then just, in the more recent Disney era, they've started saying, hey, let's actually have more black people and, people of color in this galaxy full of all these different people. And they've fucking lost their shit. And I think that it really is just culturally, I'm not saying that everybody in the Phantom Menace is literally mindful, like conscious of the Great Replacement theory as something they believe in. Some of them probably do. But I think the cultural effect is the same thing. Does that make sense? Like it's all part of the same cultural notion. If you're watching this channel and you're at all familiar with comics, into comics, you probably know what Cosmic Book News is. Cosmic Book News. Yeah. So they the one compliment, genuine sincere compliment I can give to Pat McGroin and Cosmic Book News is they know how to do SEO, search engine optimization, and they know how to be one of the first sites that will come up for pretty much anything comic book related that you Google. I don't know, I guess they just have some specialist that's doing it for them, or maybe he's an SEO genius. I don't fucking know, but somehow they come right up in Google with, pretty much any kind of comic book, movie, or comic search that you do. And it's, that's a problem. It's a problem with, it's kind of part of a larger problem with how the algorithms function and how, the internet and social media, as far as like the worst shit getting seen the most and first.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, there's a reason why I said that it's comic book news for people with brain damage. Oh boy. Well, so here, right here. Let's take a look at this one. Keanu Reeves confirms Matrix 4 trans 4chan rumors. All right, so there's a couple of things right there in the title that we can deduce. One is that he's getting rumors from 4chan like fucking Doomcock. What is the trans rumor? Because the Matrix has always been about a transgender allegory. That's what it originally was. It was never not that, just because, I didn't realize it back in the day, but in hindsight, yeah, it makes perfect sense that that's what it was.
Perfect sense. Yep. And this is coming from the creators of the Matrix saying that.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And I've seen people on the Twitter like arguing with the Wachowskis, like, no, it's not. They're like, we fucking made it, dude. Like, yes, it is. Thor, Love and Thunder, pushing the boundaries of wokeness. So there, somebody must have said pushing the boundaries because that's in a quote, but then he added of wokeness. Look, it's got women in it. How can they put women in a movie? Fucking woke, man. I'm tired of everything being woke. They got these vaginas and these breasts and stuff. Like, what are you doing?
Look at that man handing that woman the hammer. Oh, doesn't that feel good? Look at that.
No surprise, but apparently Thor Love and Thunder will push the boundaries of wokeness as the flick features the return of Natalie Portman, who plays the capitalized female Thor, and Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, who searches for her lesbian queen. What fucking decade is this dude living in? You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to add lesbian there. It's just like, if she's searching for her queen, the implication is there. Anyone that's not a fucking brain damaged moron is going to understand what that's saying. Notice how he's always like, bold my own. Yeah, I bet you do bold your own.
The comments are going to say the same thing. I predict that this will have a big opening weekend and a steep decline once everyone realizes it's woke, right? But not knowing that most big Hollywood productions have declines in the second week.
So Thor Love and Thunder falls right into that, where it's just pushing the boundaries of what's comfortable and what should be expected. Okay, hold on. What the fuck? This doesn't say anything about the genders or anything related to, it's literally just talking about the movie is pushing the boundaries of what's comfortable and what should be expected. So he's projecting all of this fucking, anti-woman, anti-lesbian weirdness onto it. Like there's nothing here about any of that. This, and he bolded this as if to, you know, to support his point when what? So, okay. So he, when it says what's comfortable and what should be expected, he immediately thinks I'm uncomfortable with women and gay stuff. And I don't expect it. You know what I mean? So like, that's the implication of what he's saying here.
So if it happens, it's bad.
Yep. Yep. Corporations do make decisions because they want money, and film corporations or media corporations make decisions because they want more people to consume that media. If you're leaving a group of people out of the consideration, you're leaving money on the table. All right. Now, the creators that involved, not the executives or the corporate fucks, but the creators involved legitimately seem to care about what they're doing, and they will write characters, nuanced queer characters, black characters, whatever characters, because representation is important, whether you think so or not. You know, the JW, by the way, I'm assuming you're a white dude. Let me know if I'm wrong, but you know, this is the type of perspective that typically comes along with being a white male, because you don't see outside of being a white male. So it's like anything that's different than you is somehow, you know, I'm not saying you're racist or bigoted or anything like that, but I mean, there is a bias that you need to get in check here, because other people exist, other perspectives exist, and that's what these characters typically are. Yeah, it can be done poorly, it can be done cynically, and it's definitely done cynically from the top, the executive level, the corporate level, usually, I would assume, but that's what capitalism does. So blaming this, like focusing in on this as if this is the only thing that capitalism produces that's cynical and exploitative, is, and it's pretty short-sighted and myopic. However, the media itself, the way it's typically written, produced, and so on, is usually done like if they get a queer writer or a black writer or whatever, it's because that person has a perspective that they are going to write into this story or the characters, and there's nothing exploitative about that. It just means that there's going to be other people that are going to connect with that media better. Let's look at it from this point of view. Why is a movie that just features white characters or men as the leading characters, why is that not exploitative? Why you don't feel like you're being exploited? Yep. You're being just as exploited from the executives and the corporations on that level as anybody else in the marketing. It's just that because that's your perspective and you've lived in it and you don't think outside of it very much, if at all, then you don't realize it. So to you, it's just the norm. Everything's exploitative. So yeah, just drop it. It's a dumb argument. But let's see what they have to say about the first 2 episodes of Hawkeye.
In credits are her being amazing at archery, her being amazing at martial arts, her being amazing at fencing. And this is only because those are the things which are required for this episode.
Does anybody else realize how fucking stupid that is? He's complaining that Kate Bishop has these skills like martial arts and archery only because that's what the plot of the show calls for. All right. Well, yeah, just like every fucking character in every plot ever, moron. You know, like Han Solo. He just happened to be the best pilot in the galaxy, and he just happened to have the ship that made the Kessel Run, and that just happened to be who they needed to get. You know what I mean? Like any story you point to, pretty much, that has like a hero in it that eventually wins the day in the end, and not even necessarily a hero, but like most stories involve a character that's just right for that situation, because that's how you write stories, you goddamn stupid goon. Yeah, so just, we're not even, 16 seconds in, and he's already made one of the dumbest criticisms I've ever heard. I'm not even being hyperbolic. That is one of the most idiotic things you could ever say about a show or a movie, is that a character just happens to have all the things that the plot needs to go forward. Like, well, yeah, man. Apparently you've never written anything. Or more likely, he doesn't think about it until it comes to, the fact that it's a woman. It's a woman Hawkeye. And she can't be good at everything unless there's some kind of very layered, nuanced, explanation for it. Whereas if nobody ever questioned Jeremy Renner, Clint Barton, Hawkeye. Nobody was ever like, oh, it just so happens that this guy has bows and arrows, and look, he's got an explosive one that he can shoot at Loki. Oh, how convenient. So goddamn stupid. All right.
Try to engage them, because I've been shocked the number of times that I've tried to engage somebody with an air of understanding that I've got them to change their mind, or at least get them to see what it is they did wrong.
So these DMs I'll often get will say, it's not fair to paint all of Comicsgate with a broad brush. You always talk about Ethan Van Sciver and Comicsgate as if they're the same thing. It's not fair. There's a lot of people in Comicsgate who just, are there. He said that the line they have is create, don't hate. And it's like, okay, I know there are people in Comicsgate who, as far as I can tell, don't go out and advocate hateful shit. They're not, saying hateful shit. They're not harassing anybody. I know those people exist in Comicsgate. All right. I'm not delusional to think that every single person that calls themselves Comicsgate is the same as Van Sciver. But because the thing is, everybody that's aware of Comicsgate, though, anybody, if you're a comics fan and you know about Comicsgate, you either you know that Ethan Van Sciver is essentially there is no official structure to it, but unofficially Ethan is the head of it. He's the leader. He's the one that sets the tone. He's the most commonly known one. He's the one that decides if he doesn't want you in Comicsgate, he's gonna fucking make sure you're not in Comicsgate anymore. So to try and act like it's unfair to paint Comicsgate, with the brush of Van Sciver and Malin and all these other fucking people, it's like, no, they are inherently tied to it. You can't rehabilitate the image of Comicsgate. It's not going to happen. You may not agree with all of the hateful shit. You may not agree with all that. Maybe you just want to create your indie books and you hate what the big two are doing for whatever reason. That's up to you. If that's your private reason, that's your preference, whatever. I'm not saying you're wrong for not liking what, mainstream comics are doing, but if you don't agree with all of that shit that everybody involved in comics, fans, creators, they know the history of Comicsgate and the harassment and the hate speech and the bullying and the doxing, right? It still happens. I get it all the time. Judah's been doxed. If you don't agree with those things, disavow Comicsgate and start your own fucking thing. There's no reason to be associated with something that is just that known for that type of shit. If you don't agree with it, disavow it. Come out clearly and say, I don't fucking agree with this. I don't consider myself Comicsgate. I wanted to just make indie comics, but these guys are doing this shit and I don't approve of that. That would be like me coming up to you and saying, hey man, I know the KKK is known for burning crosses and wearing hoods and stuff like that, but I think there's actually some really good things going on in the KKK. And trying to convince you that, hey, it's not so bad. Yeah, there's some bad elements of the KKK. You know what I mean? But there's a few good guys in there. That's essentially the same thing. I don't care if you think I'm, being mean, or you think I'm a SJW, woke, agenda, leftist, whatever. These are just facts. You don't have to be a fucking agenda-driven leftist. It's very common knowledge in the comics community among creators and fans that that's what Comicsgate is known for. And you're not going to rehabilitate that image. So the best thing you can do if you don't agree with it is get the fuck out and denounce it.
Mike D, you say you're a bi guy that writes reviews on a site related to Comicsgate. When they're doing bigoted, homophobic shit, they can point to their site and be like, oh, but we have people writing reviews for us that are bi. Like we're not bigoted. We're not bigots. So you don't want to help them do that, Yeah.
I mean, if what you're saying is accurate, man, I hate to say this, but I'm not known for beating around the bush. So I'm just going to be direct. You're making yourself a token. And it allows, that type of, if you're part of a community that's queer or person of color or anything like that, and you're, supporting or defending or even just, working behind the scenes in support of Comicsgate, you are being used as a token by them.
And it also is why I might tend to be a little more understanding when it comes to people on the left, because if it comes to somebody who is, gay or trans or black, they're living in this, not all of them obviously, but they're living in a society where they are constantly kind of having a bad day. You know, they don't have the benefit of white privilege in this country.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am going to feel for them a bit more when they get fucking furious, or snarky or angry. I'm like, I can't really blame you.
And speaking to what you were just saying about that person that was having a hard time, that's something that I think everybody would do well to consider, is that a lot of people are in pain. You know what I mean? There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of just like anxiety over what the fuck is even going to happen with our society. You know what I mean? In the near and long term. And that creates, it creates emotional distress that can come out in all kinds of ways, like even people on the right. This is something I try to keep in mind. It's difficult because I see some of the worst of, people from Comicsgate and such like that. But even a lot of the worst people, it's on some level, even if I don't agree or I completely condemn everything that they say and do, on some level, it comes from some place of isolation, alienation, a feeling of not being valued or understood, or they feel cast out, and those feelings can be valid, no matter how shitty the person is.
I mean, well, no, all of us as human beings our tendency is to project, all of us, right or left. The tendency is to project. And if I'm having, and it could be something simple. If I'm having a bad day and I get on Twitter and something pisses me off, I have much more of a tendency to, put something snarky up there towards the person that posted this, whatever. If I'm having a good day, I may look at it and go, screw it. I don't need to mess with this. I'm going to go off and play video games or whatever, So yeah, it could be something as simple as that, but take that and put it on somebody that has a job who has a boss that is just a monster to them, So it's not just them having a bad day. They feel like they're having a bad life at that point. And they can't take it out on the things that's inflicting this bad mood onto them, because they get fired, or maybe it's their family or their spouse or whatever. They can't take it out on them, but they can go on Twitter and blow it out with somebody and feel a little better. It's temporary. It's a short little endorphin hit, but and so, yeah, I try to be understanding about that.
I think that they don't have a chance already. I think if Chuds were going to make any headway, they would have done it already. Like, I think the tide has broken, and it probably broke a while back. When you look at, the biggest channels, I did a stream looking at that months ago, where like, look how far all of their metrics have fallen, since the peak or whatever. Like across the board, they're doing worse. They're still there. We still see them. We still hear them. It's still, depending on who you follow on Twitter, you're going to see their shit retweeted a whole bunch. So it makes you feel like they're more present than they are. But like, I think that you look at Comicsgate, and, we did that whole stream, the funeral for Comicsgate, where we looked at so many different metrics of their success and how that's also fallen off. They would have already won by now. Like, so I think we kind of have to get to a point, and this is probably the most important thing I'll say this stream. I think we need to get to a perspective where we realize that they're just going to be around, and we need to stop seeing them as such a threat. I mean, yes, they're a threat in the sense that people are harmed. They contribute to bigotry of all kinds. They contribute to toxicity of all kinds. But we kind of need to get to a point where we accept that that's going to be around a while, and us engaging with it all the time is not only not doing much, it's contributing to what they want. They want that kind of engagement, right? And then it also, like we were just talking about, demoralizes us. It wears us down. It makes us enjoy our shit less because we're dealing with them. So I think the most objectively useful thing we could do is kind of reframe how we see it. Instead of seeing it as this ongoing struggle between the right and the left in fandoms, we just need to accept that that's an element that exists, and it's going to take time. Like you were saying earlier, we need to do more progressive content, like we're talking about a minute ago, do more positive or at least neutral engagement content that makes people think about things in a more nuanced way, a healthier way, and just keep doing that. And over time, we're already the larger segment of fandom. It seems like there's more of them because they're so loud and they're so ubiquitous online, and because that's part of what they do. They want to make you feel like they're everywhere, right? But they're not. Regular decent people are more of the fan community than that, right? And so over time, we just keep growing this thing that we're part of, and over time that theoretically will shrink, and it may never go away completely. It probably won't, but I don't think that the way that we've been doing it in a lot of ways is the best way to go about it. I think that is the best thing for everybody, to kind of don't take it so seriously. If you see harm being caused, do what you can to stop it. But I mean, making arguments on Twitter and retweeting this and that, I've been doing it the last couple of days, and it's already fucking wearing me out that I've been retweeting and talking shit on chuds. It doesn't accomplish anything except to make us feel good in the moment. But it's so easy to get sucked into that cycle of feeling like you're in this never-ending struggle against this other side that's so powerful and stuff. And it's like, they're not powerful. There's not that many of them, in the grand scheme of things. They are shrinking. They are losing influence. They may not consciously realize it, but their goal is either to completely co-opt this media for their own self, so that, if Marvel and Star Wars and DC are like, yeah, you know what, we're going back to just pretty much white male characters, no queer stuff, they'll call that their victory, and then they will be champions of those things. But that's not going to happen. We know that's not going to happen. Marvel, DC, they're not going to do that. So the only other outcome is that they will continue what they're doing in perpetuity. They will never stop, as long as they don't get their way, which is what I just described. That's what they want, which won't happen. As long as social media algorithms are based on reaction, outrage, and clicks, and so on, which, like you said earlier, that's probably not going away. As long as those two things are true, the status quo that we are in now will not change in any substantial way. The only thing that we can hope to do is strengthen the more healthy, positive side of fandom, to the point where these guys are just basically over here in the corner, and every once in a while we look over and go, oh man, they're still over there saying that dumb shit. Huh. And then we just go back to doing what we're doing, instead of letting them occupy so much of our fandom real estate, so to speak.